where common sense, reason, and community come together. The Rick Smith Show. Welcome back to The Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
So today marks the tragic one-year anniversary of the murder of George Floyd. And look, this is where I have problems with our media structure. The reports that I heard coming out of Minnesota, it was a peaceful day. It was a day of people coming together. Yet all we hear is there's a shot fired. Somebody shot something, and that's the frame. Instead of the fact that people were coming together to mourn this man's murder and to demand justice, the frame is there was a shot fired, and who knows who that was. It's just crazy. Anyway, here to share some thoughts on the one-year anniversary of George Floyd's murder, I've asked Pennsylvania State Senator Art Haywood to come talk with us. Art, thanks for taking time for us.
Thank you. Thanks for inviting me on, Rick.
So, this is the tragic one-year anniversary. The positive, I think, on a day like today is the Chauvin trial went, I think, the right way. I'm glad to see that he was convicted on all counts. That's fairly rare.
Yeah, that is unusual. And guilty on all counts, I think, was a big outcome, at least from the family perspective. And we should also say that the officers who were nearby have also been charged. Now, they have not yet had a trial, but they have been charged. And this was done by the Minnesota Attorney General's office. Very important that they had the independent investigations. It wasn't done by the Minneapolis police. So I'm glad that we got to this result. That is at least one step forward. And the Black Lives Matter movement grew out of this killing, the murder. And that movement has had some significant impacts in Pennsylvania and across the United States. So unbelievable tragedy, but some action is coming about as a result.
But you listen to some of the right-wing voices out there, and the people on January 6th, they were okay. They were patriots. They were just seeking redress of grievance against their government. By defecating on the floor, urinating on someone's desk. Beating police officers with things, killing one of them. Patriots, but the Black Lives Matter folks, terrorists.
Yeah, and obviously the Black Lives Matter movement has largely been peaceful, obviously not involved in killing police officers or anyone else for that matter. And so that is unfortunate. But I can say in Harrisburg, there were some students from around the state who came, spoke at the Capitol steps about the importance of George Floyd's life, as well as his death. So as you mentioned at the outset, folks are coming together as a result of this tragic death. And we can build upon that to make changes, not just in policing, but beyond.
So are we on the side of defund the police? Because one of the things I hear a lot, because I personally think defund the police was the absolute wrong frame. But I'm curious where your thought is.
Folks in my neighborhood are not for defunding the police. If there's a problem, we call the police. If there's a burglary, we call the police. A robbery, we call the police. So defunding the police is not something that I want to see happen, or most of my neighbors. I will say this, there are many who want to see more resources for social services, mental health. And I got to tell you, police officers are requested to do a number of things well beyond their scope.
Yep.
But we decided to cut general assistance so people will have no money, live on the streets. We decided to cut mental health services so folks with mental health needs are in the neighborhoods. Then there's a problem. Police are called to deal with a general assistance fund, to deal with the mental health issues. The police are not prepared to deal with all these social problems that we in the legislature have put on the police. We have put it on the police because we have failed to fund the programs to keep people out of criminal activity in many instances. I feel for the police. They've been put in some very, very difficult positions.
No, we've allowed everything, like that old saying, what rolls downhill? Well, the cops are at the bottom of it. And I remember back years ago, I was complaining that Governor Rendell and that administration had closed the state mental health hospitals. And it was bipartisan, the outrage that I got from both the Republican mayor of the city that I live in and the governor's office, that how dare I, blame the governor for closing the mental health hospitals, and that they weren't ending up in jails, which, I had talked to the cops. They were. We dumped those folks onto the streets, and the police were the only ones left to help clean it up.
Yeah, it's a serious challenge looking at what we have left to the police to solve.
Yeah.
We got tremendous gun violence here in Philadelphia and most big cities across the United States. The police can't manage folks who just don't want to follow rules, who can get easy access to guns and then shoot their friends, shoot their loved ones, shoot random people.
That's why we need more guns, Art. We need more guns.
Yeah, that's not going to solve it. Obviously, too many guns is in the hands of dangerous people. But I do think that there is some legislation that Congress is considering under the George Floyd Act, which I do think will do a number of things, hopefully to improve policing. I know one of the features of it is to increase the amount of training in de-escalation that police officers have. Big drive to get accreditation and more professionalism in police departments. There's thousands, I think I heard 18,000 police departments in the United States with about 18,000 different rules under which to operate. So we got to get more professionalization. I think we got to put police in a position where they're working full time. These part-time police officers don't have the training really to be effective. Very dangerous. That's what happened with Antoine Rose in Pittsburgh with part-time police officers. And they're also asking for changing some of the accountability, for instance, taking away qualified immunity or limiting the immunity. It's basically to change when police officers can be sued for use of excessive force. But Rick, I got to tell you, it's not just the individual police officer that we may need to have some more accountability. What about the supervisors? What about the higher ups? The on-the-street police officers are operating under some rules that come from the higher-up department. So there's quite a bit of change that we need to make.
No, I'm
obviously.
With you. But what about
against chokeholds? Go ahead.
What about the training? I mean, I've got a problem with how police officers are being trained now. It's you look at a lot of these city police departments. These guys look like they've fallen out of a war zone. And they act like that I can't tell you the last time, you saw on TV someone arrested while standing up. We slam them to the ground. We put knees all over them. We pin them to the, for an air freshener hanging from a window or something stupid. It's no longer put your hands on the car. No, it's slam me to the ground.
Yeah, no, that's definitely excessive where training is necessary. But in Pennsylvania, again, we got hundreds of police departments. And once they're trained, we do have some level of centralized training. But once they train, they go to these individual police departments, and the rules of those police departments apply. And so even post-training, we need to really look at how we can create a much more professional occupation in general for policing.
Yeah, and we need to pay police better.
That's right.
And there's a lot we should be doing. And there's signs all over my neighborhood. We support the police, and I agree. I support the police when they're not wrong. When they've done something wrong, they need to be held accountable. And I hope at some point we can all agree to that. The other thing I wanted to ask you about is Republican governors across the country right now are pulling back federal unemployment assistance under this guise of, well, they're just a bunch of lazy people out there, Art, who aren't desperate and hungry enough to go back to the crummy jobs they had before the pandemic. So we're gonna force them to do it by making up a labor shortage, because nobody wants to go back and work for $2.13 an hour as a server at a restaurant.
Yeah, unfortunately, that is just a myth generated really only in the last month or so, as employers are having some challenges. I do see quite a few help wanted signs in my area, and really when I travel around the state. But when we talk to workers, they are dissatisfied with many of the jobs that are offered. And employers really got to look at this question of why aren't people attracted to the jobs that they have offered? And here's a few things that we have heard. One, folks are not attracted to poverty paid jobs, $9, $10, $11 an hour. Not attractive. That's why we got to get the wage up to $15 an hour minimum. We had a guest on from Hip City in the Harrisburg area. Their minimum wage is about $15 an hour. They have hired people. They don't have a hiring shortage. They're paying more. Second, I'm on the vaccine task force with the governor. There's 4 of us. What we have heard is that there's a bunch of people who are vaccinated and unvaccinated who are very concerned about the spread of COVID-19. Folks who are unvaccinated, some of those folks are afraid of the vaccine and COVID-19. They are afraid of both and don't want to be in a place where they can be subject to folks who are unmasked and who are spreading. So fear of the virus is still serious. Child care is still a challenge in Pennsylvania. Schools, in many respects, are still hybrid, not fully in person. Child care suffered dramatically during the virus, and many of the child care operations closed. So pay, fear of the vaccine, and child care appear to be some of the main issues surfacing why people don't want to go back to jobs that are unattractive. I will say that when we look at July, we look at August, particularly when we go back to school in September, I think this whole conversation about labor shortage will be done.
Yeah.
Because we'll have the schools open. Hopefully, vaccine will be really well down. But having an attractive job means you need to pay.
No, and this is where, I've said for years, I'm waiting for that moment when working people said enough is enough. That moment where they go, you know what? I've been working in desperation conditions, like the hamster on the wheel, barely able to keep up, and working hard, playing by the rules, and not even keeping up, let alone getting ahead. And there's a point at which people said enough. I'm not going to put myself in dangerous conditions for poverty wages. And we have a political party in this country that's saying, no, we're going to make you take those crummy jobs. We're going to make you desperate. We're going to make you hungry. We're going to move you back to the good old days of the Lochner era, where if you were hungry enough and desperate enough to take those poverty jobs in horrible conditions, it was your right, it was your liberty, only we're going to make you do it as part of your right and your liberty.
I think that's the right assessment. It's basically trying to put folks back into jobs that are poverty paid jobs, many of them being exploited. And one thing about the restaurant industry, unfortunately, there's a high level of sexual harassment in that industry. And so I can understand why individuals don't want to return. And we should keep another thing in mind, Rick. Many of these employees that the companies want are folks who have refused to return to the same job that they were in. And they have refused to return to the same job that they were in because they're dissatisfied. I heard one reporter say, we're now in what's called a great reassessment, a reevaluation of work. And as you said, working folks are fed up with some of these jobs that are just taking them to the brink, and they want more for themselves. That's a good thing.
Yeah, that's a good thing. So as a policymaker, how do you move forward on this? I mean, one of my fears is that we've got a governor's election coming up in 2022. And I fear if it goes the wrong way, Pennsylvania becomes a right to work state, or as I always say, no rights at work state. And you end up with more poverty jobs. You end up with more desperate workers. And this situation gets worse.
I think that's a real risk, but that's in 2022. I think here in 2021, what is a key thing is that we stand beside the individuals who realize, I'm done with the exploitation. I'm done with the jobs that pay low. I'm done with stretching myself to the limit with childcare and risking my life to serve people who don't have a mask on. And we've got to support these individuals. I think that we do have the support in Pennsylvania. so that we can continue the unemployment compensation that's from the national government. Now, that's because, as you said, we got a governor who recognizes the importance of working people. We just got to highlight that in 2022 and help people understand what the choice is. But here in May of 2021, we've got to clarify that there is no labor shortage. That is a myth. What's short are the checks.
Yep. No, I mean, the reality is, I go back to economics class. The supply and demand argument. If the supply is low, prices go up. If you have a low supply of labor, you got to pay more to get it. It's that simple.
It is that simple. And Senator Hughes shared something with us today with respect to the 283 tip wage that we have here, which is obviously you can't get a lower pay than that. He shared that several states have a tip wage of $9 an hour or $10 an hour or $12 an hour, even up to $14 an hour. All of those states have projected higher growth by the National Restaurant Association.
Yep.
Because I think it's extremely simple as you go back to economics. People who have more money spend it. And they're going to spend it in restaurants and other places. That means there's going to be more growth.
Yep. And I think we've learned this, that giving people money, as we've done through this pandemic 3 times, we gave people checks to be able to spend. It works. Instead of giving corporations handouts, we give those to people who actually need it and spend it and make their lives a little bit better. It actually works.
It does work. And it's amazing how hard it is to help people understand how simple it is. You pay people, they shop. They shop, businesses grow. There's not anything at all complicated about that.
Absolutely. You ask any business owner what they want customers. I had a friend who said, years ago, he was an economist. He said, you give me a $20,000 tax cut, I'm going to go on vacation. You give people in my neighborhood $20,000, I'm going to hire somebody to get it. It is that simple. But Art, I appreciate the time you've taken. I appreciate the good work you're doing, and I hope you'll come back and talk to us again real soon.
Glad to, and good to see you again, Rick.
You as well. Good stuff. Our good friend, Pennsylvania Senator Art Haywood. Love to hear your thoughts. You can email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. Is there a labor shortage? Or as he says, people tired of the poverty wages? rick@thericksmithshow.com. Quick break. Right back. Stick around.
Remembering that united we bargain, divided we beg. Rick Smith.